This time, I would like to share my thoughts on Shohei Ohtani's two-way career together with those who have a deep understanding of baseball. I have mentioned before on this program that the year 2026 is an extremely important year for Shohei Ohtani. This year, he played for Samurai Japan in the Spring World Baseball Classic. However, the team was eliminated in the quarterfinals. After the loss, Ohtani did not immediately head home. Together with his teammates, he reflected on the defeat, shared in their disappointment, and vowed to come back stronger in the next tournament. I believe that this may have been the first time he truly experienced the feeling of losing since his days at Hanamaki Higashi High School. The emotions he felt after Japan's defeat in this year's WBC, and the time he spent grieving alongside his teammates after the game, seemed very similar to the emotions he experienced after losing the final game of his high school career. That is precisely why I believe Shohei Ohtani spoke with such determination during an interview before returning home when he said, "Anything other than winning the championship is a failure." I do not believe those words reflected a negative view of defeat. Rather, I believe they represented his unwavering determination to win the next tournament. Even through his gentle tone of voice, I could sense an intense and fierce competitive fire within Ohtani. I still remember that clearly. After that, Ohtani went through spring training, exhibition games, and the preseason schedule. For the first time as a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers, he entered the regular season as a true two-way player. I have a feeling that he carried all of the frustration and disappointment from the WBC loss into the season and was determined to unleash it on the field. I believe many people felt the same thing when watching him pitch at the start of the season. As a pitcher, he looked noticeably different from the two-way player we had seen in previous years. Watching him dominate with overwhelming power, displaying elite velocity and consistently delivering quality starts, was nothing short of remarkable. I can only tip my cap to what he has accomplished on the mound. However, something happened this season that had not happened before. A prolonged hitting slump. As a hitter, Shohei Ohtani possesses natural genius. As a pitcher, I believe he developed his talent through relentless effort and hard work. That is how I view him. Up until now, his two-way success was built around his abilities as a hitter first, while also excelling as a pitcher. But this season, the form of Shohei Ohtani as a hitter began to change. The Ohtani we saw through last season was the very definition of a slugger. His image was built around launching home runs at an extraordinary rate. However, this season, he fell into a prolonged offensive slump. For an extended period of time, the familiar crack of his bat seemed to disappear. Not only did the home runs stop coming, even base hits became difficult to find. Eventually, the strikeouts began to pile up. In fact, during an interview with a Japanese magazine last off-season, Shohei Ohtani made the following comment: "I worry that the things that have worked for me until now may stop working." In other words, both as a hitter and as a pitcher, he acknowledged the fear that the training methods and approaches that had always brought success might one day stop producing results. Then that reality arrived. As a hitter, there was a period when nothing seemed to work. I believe Shohei Ohtani may have experienced genuine anxiety for the first time. Even so, no matter what happened, I always believed he would eventually overcome his struggles at the plate. He is a player who has achieved countless historic accomplishments in Major League Baseball. If anyone could overcome a hitting slump of his own, surely it would be him. Throughout this program, I repeatedly stated with conviction that Shohei Ohtani would come back. And I truly believed it. Until last season, Shohei Ohtani was viewed as a slugger. The image most people had of him was a hitter who could launch home runs in bunches. However, after falling into a prolonged slump this season, he eventually arrived at what I would describe as a completely new hitting approach. What I call the relaxed swing approach. I believe this new approach was developed with the goal of reducing the strikeouts that became so noticeable during his extended slump, improving his ability to recognize pitches, and increasing the rate at which he makes contact with the baseball. His stance now reminds me of someone standing at a bus stop on a rainy day, calmly holding an umbrella while waiting for the bus. There is very little visible tension or effort in the setup. Yet from that relaxed position, he unleashes a sharp and efficient swing. Because of that adjustment, I believe he has become capable of adapting to pitches that previously caused him to swing and miss. Anyone who has watched Ohtani's swing since he emerged from his prolonged slump can probably see what I mean. He has been producing far more beautiful line drives, reminiscent of the type of contact often associated with Ichiro Suzuki. I believe this is the ultimate hitting form that Ohtani arrived at after endless trial and error. Against difficult pitches, he can now rely on bat control similar to Ichiro's and turn those pitches into hits. Against mistakes left over the plate, he can still drive the ball for home runs just as he always has. This represents the ultimate hitting approach. By reducing unnecessary tension in order to improve contact rates, he may sacrifice some of the tremendous home run distance he once generated. However, with Ohtani's natural power, he remains more than capable of producing line drive home runs that clear the fence. By removing excess effort in order to improve contact rates, strikeouts decrease, hits increase, and home runs can still be hit. There are advantages everywhere you look. That is how I view the new hitting approach Shohei Ohtani developed after overcoming his prolonged slump. Once this approach becomes fully established within him, I believe we will begin to see more line drive home runs and more home runs that barely clear the fence. As a hitter, he has recovered from his long slump. Because of that, I believe we can now watch Shohei Ohtani's offense with confidence once again. As for his pitching, as I mentioned earlier, he has been outstanding since opening day. Many people are familiar with the goal-setting chart that Ohtani created during his high school years. At the center of that chart was a major goal: become the best player in the world. My interpretation has always been that, at the time, Ohtani's vision of becoming the best player in the world specifically meant becoming the best pitcher in the world. At that time, whether in Nippon professional baseball or Major League Baseball, the idea of a player succeeding as a two-way player at the professional level was almost impossible to imagine. It sounded more like a dream than a realistic career path. Naturally, considering the realities of professional baseball, I do not believe the idea of becoming the world's best player through two-way play had fully formed in Ohtani's mind at that stage. Japanese pitchers were receiving tremendous recognition around the world at that time. Because of that, I believe his focus was on becoming the best pitcher in the world. After graduating from high school, he likely envisioned signing with the Dodgers organization, working his way through the minor leagues, reaching the major leagues, and eventually winning the Cy Young Award. However, Shohei Ohtani was selected by the Hokkaido Nippon Ham Fighters in the NPB draft. The Fighters offered him the opportunity and support to pursue his dream of becoming a two-way player at the professional level, both as a pitcher and a hitter. As a result, rather than signing a minor league contract with the Dodgers organization, he began his professional career in Nippon professional baseball. During his time in NPB, he excelled both on the mound and at the plate, establishing himself as one of the most unique talents in Japanese baseball. He later made the move to Major League Baseball and joined the Los Angeles Angels, where his journey as a two-way player continued on the world's biggest stage. However, reality took a different path. Ironically, the value of Shohei Ohtani as a hitter surpassed the value of Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher before he could fully establish himself on the mound. As a hitter, he became a home run champion in both the American League and the National League. He achieved the historic 50-50 milestone. He hit 50 home runs in consecutive seasons. Home runs became one of the defining elements of his baseball career. As I mentioned earlier, Shohei Ohtani's goal during high school was to become the best player in the world as a pitcher. Of course, all of his accomplishments as a hitter are extraordinary achievements. But I believe that, deep down, he has always wanted to earn major honors as a pitcher as well. For many years, that opportunity simply never presented itself. This season, however, things are different. For the first time since joining the Dodgers, he finds himself in a position where a Cy Young award is a realistic possibility. He understands that, as a two-way player, the hurdles to winning the Cy Young award are much higher than for a regular pitcher. Nevertheless, from opening day onward, he has been performing at a level that makes him a legitimate contender. That is why I believe his extraordinary pitching performances at the start of the season are connected to this goal. As a hitter, I imagine his personal benchmark might be something like winning the Triple Crown, given the outstanding achievements he has already accomplished. At the same time, he also desires to excel as a pitcher, to maintain balance, and to establish himself as a top-level player in both roles. This desire is natural, considering his abilities and accomplishments. However, one must not make the mistake of thinking that because he seeks great pitching results, he should be used solely as a pitcher. That would be a grave error. For Shohei Ohtani, being a two-way player is part of his identity as a player. It is the lifeline of his career. Taking away one aspect of his game would disrupt the balance he needs to succeed. He performs best when he can maintain balance between pitching and hitting. When he struggles on the mound, he can compensate at the plate. When he struggles at the plate, he can make up for it on the mound. This is how he has been able to sustain his two-way career. The Dodgers used him as a dedicated pitcher on several occasions. That approach should no longer be used. Whenever Ohtani takes the mound, he must also bat. Allowing him to hit ensures that Shohei Ohtani can fully demonstrate the power of his two-way abilities. This approach was how he thrived during his time with the Los Angeles Angels. It is the way he lives as a professional baseball player. Of course, considerations for his physical condition, including resting him for a game, are necessary. But whenever he pitches, he must also take his at-bats. By doing so, we will see the Shohei Ohtani that we all want to see. And we will witness Shohei Ohtani surpassing our imagination and expectations. That is why I believe that whenever Shohei Ohtani takes the mound, he should also step into the batter's box. That balance is what allows him to be the unique player that he is. Pitching and hitting are not separate identities for him. Together, they form the complete version of Shohei Ohtani. When people discuss preserving his health or maximizing his value, I believe they must first understand that point. The two-way role is not simply a strategy. It is his identity. It is the foundation of his baseball life. For that reason, I hope the Dodgers continue to allow him to compete as both a pitcher and a hitter whenever possible. Because when Shohei Ohtani is allowed to be Shohei Ohtani, baseball becomes something special. And when that happens, we often witness things that seem impossible. Things that go beyond what any of us imagined. I believe that is exactly what we will continue to see from him moving forward. That is all for today. Thank you very much.